Welcome to Spirits of Whiskey. We explore the wide world of whiskey through the many colorful personalities who make it, promote it, write about it, and more.
With each podcast, Kerry Moynahan, a certified bourbon steward and bartender, and yours truly, Philip Dobard, director of the Cocktail Collection, interview whiskey's most important names.
From high-profile makers, blenders, and ambassadors,
to out-of-the-way innovators and remote pioneers.
Join us as we discover the people and elements that give the water of life its spirit. It is February 3rd, 2021, and you're listening to episode 32. Today, we catch up with distiller Nicole Austin and learn about what she's been working on since last we spoke.
But first, stay tuned for this week's Whiskey Chronicles.
Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
On episode 6 of this podcast, we spoke to Nicole Austin, general manager and distiller at Cascade Hollow Distilling Co, about her whiskey journey. From testing waters in the sewers of New York City to making whiskey in Tennessee, we heard it all. In addition, we highlighted 2 bottled and bond expressions that she created for the George Dickel brand, released in 2019 and 2020 respectively. These new whiskeys marked the beginning of the distillery's efforts to drive innovation while honoring the tradition of its most storied brand.
For many years, Cascade Hollow has produced excess whiskey and sold it off to other brands that, for various reasons, source whiskey. One such brand is Barrel Craft Spirits, run by founder Joe Beatrice, whom we interviewed on episode 20. According to Joe, Barrel had planned to open its own distillery, but after investing so much time and energy blending the fantastic whiskeys they'd sourced, they determined that creating amazing limited-release blends would be more rewarding. Barrel Craft Spirits, along with numerous other distilleries, blenders, and finishers, have made delicious use of Dickel spirits, a fact that has helped establish the Cascade Hollow Distilling Company's reputation for excellence.
With all the praise that George Dickel-sourced whiskeys has received, it only made sense that Cascade Hollow should introduce some premium brands that would take advantage of this new interest. Enter Cascade Moon, a new whiskey series created by distiller Nicole Austin. The series was inspired by Cascade Hollow's original Cascade Pure whiskey, which employed the tagline, Mellow as Moonlight. The first edition of this new line was released in the fall of 2020, and the second just in time for the holidays.
Not only has Nicole been busy crafting Cascade Moon since we last talked to her, she's also been working on a new George Dickel Tennessee whiskey 15-year single barrel. While no 2 casks are the same, and each will vary in taste, consumers can expect a rich and complex liquid in every bottle. Additionally, this offering is available for purchase by the bottle and by the barrel.
Up next, we'll get a closer look at these 3 whiskeys when we talk to Nicole Austin. Stay with us.
The Center for Culinary Culture, home to the Cocktail Collection, has a YouTube channel, Eats Drinks TV. Streaming now are Cocktails, The Grand Tour, Culinary Quickies, Music and Booze with Mo, V is for Vino, and this podcast, Spirits of Whiskey. New shows coming soon include Complete Greek, Mighty Fine Wine, and Spirits of Rum, a podcast featuring personalities from the wide world of cane spirits. Find us on YouTube at Eats Drinks TV and subscribe now. The Center for Culinary Culture, telling the story of food and drink, one taste at a time.
Today on Spirits of Whiskey, we have a repeat visitor. Nicole Austin is general manager and distiller at Cascade Hollow Distilling Company, makers of George Dickel Tennessee whiskey and rye, and now a couple of other things. Nicole, how are things in Tullahoma?
Well, I am actually not in Tennessee.
What?
I don't know for sure, but I can say that as of my Zoom meeting with the team a few hours ago, all was well.
Aha.
Oh, that's good.
Where are you speaking from?
Scotland.
What?
Oh, my Lord.
I'm so jealous.
So you're solidly into drinking hours there.
It is 8:38 p.m. here, so I mean, that feels fair. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
The extended happy hour. Sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, very good.
So are you there on business or pleasure?
Pleasure.
Nice. I would go there for pleasure too.
I mean, it always feels like a bit of both. Feels like coming home to come back here, actually. I really.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed. Indeed, because you worked there with William Grant, correct?
Yeah. And, I've spent a fair bit of time here. And I think of course, like the whiskey allure is strong, but also you just, I don't know, you come to love it. And it feels really nice to like come to a place and not feel like a tourist because, you know where you are,
Right.
how to get around. And like, it's nice. It's a nice feeling. It feels like a homecoming.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Even if you were there for business, it's still pleasurable.
Of course.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, isn't it?
Because you work in whiskey. So then, therefore, everything would be fun.
Yes. And now with Diageo, I mentioned William Grant, so I must mention Diageo, in which the George Dickel line sits.
Yes. And we normally talk, of course, about your whiskey journey, but we did that already. And it was a fantastic whiskey journey. So for those listeners out there who don't know Nicole's whiskey journey, please tune into our previous episode with her and learn all about that.
Yeah. I do remember it began with your working the sores of New York City.
I did.
Yes.
Talk about an upswing,
We recently talked to Sean Josephs, the former owner of...
From Pinto.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we talked about, he was unaware that date that you had in his restaurant bar was kind of what fired this whole thing for you. So
100%. And what an amazing bar it was.
Yes.
Is this a small world or what? That's just a wonderful story.
I know.
And then we also talked to, wait a minute, let me pull it down.
You keep coming up, Nicole.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, no bad reports, no negative reviews yet, Nicole.
And the thing about this industry, man, is like we all really like each other, like genuinely and actually, which is kind of a nice thing, We're all like, it's a fun bunch. You got to be kind of a fun bunch, right?
Yeah.
To make it into this industry.
If we ever get Nicole Austin, don't get me started, we'll let you know.
Yes. It's kind of like the country music crowd. Every time I work, I usually, now I'm not doing any of that now because I usually do all these big, huge events. But every time I work, these special events with the country music folks like the ACMAs and whatnot, everybody loves everybody. And it's such a difference working on that show versus like the AMAs where it's all the other music, because all the other music people can be very diva, snobby, not nice. I mean, there's some that are, but it's just very interesting seeing the contrast between the country music side and everything else and how much nicer the country music people are.
We're out here pursuing our passion and like theoretically making at least something resembling a living doing it. Like what's to be mad about?
Exactly. So speaking of pursuing things, since last we spoke, you've put out a whole bunch of new stuff.
Yeah.
We have in front of us today Cascade Moon Edition No. 1, Cascade Moon Edition No. 2, and a George Dickel Single Barrel Whiskey, which is a really cute little tiny label.
Aged 15 years, no less.
Yes. Yeah. So tell us about all these different whiskeys that you've been working on since you last were here.
They told me I could do whatever I wanted. And, hey, like, I don't think they were quite prepared for the pace at which I would love to do it. That's that craft background, right? We move quickly and, no reason not to like keep them coming,
Right. Travel light, fleet of foot.
That's right.
When did you arrive at Cascade Hollow? George Dickel?
So I started in March of 2018.
This is fast.
Yeah, I spent a fair bit of time kind of, getting my feet under me, getting to know the distillery, getting to know the whiskeys. And then I was also a bit slowed down. I had a really unfortunate horseback riding accident.
Ooh.
Also took me a while to kind of recover from. My brain is not quite the same.
Did you break some ribs?
I broke a piece of my spine and I got a really bad concussion.
Oh, God, that's worse than mine. I had a horse accident and cracked 4 ribs.
Ouch.
But I would much prefer that than my spine. So,
ouch. It sounds worse than it is. It wasn't like, the scary part. It was just the like painful and now awkward to move around part. But I'm well recovered. But anyways.
But being an iron woman, you did not equine about it.
It slowed me down. But now, here I am healthy. And also, obviously not traveling nearly as much, which gives me a lot of time to really focus on the whiskeys and what I want to do. And as you said, the result of having all that time to really focus on what I want to do and the energy, the new releases are coming at quite a pace because I'm actually able to really spend a lot of time and effort on it. So,
and we have 3 in front of us.
And are all of these going to be just limited editions, or are you going to keep trying to do them all?
Yeah, good question. So the 15-year-old single barrel, it's my intent to try and make that as widely available as possible. I have the incredible good fortune of actually having a fair bit of older whiskey stock at this distillery, which is so rare, in American whiskey today to really possess older whiskey in quantity.
Right.
I'm doubly fortunate that there's a couple factors about how we age whiskey at Cascade Hollow that really lends itself to the older whiskeys still being really lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's quite common in American whiskey. A lot of folks I've heard say, that the older whiskeys are not good, right? Anything after a certain age and everyone kind of has their own, is maybe not worth drinking. And it's sort of it's a fool to purchase it. I've said the same, and I'm generally inclined to agree with them. But we have a couple of advantages at Cascade Hollow. One of those is a lower entry proof for most of our whiskeys. So they go in at 115 and not 125, which helps the whiskey, I think, age longer without becoming just way over oaked. And then we also have the advantage of two different warehouse types, but all of these whiskeys came out of our single story, kind of more of a dunnage style rickhouse. And those things collectively, I think, really help modulate the maturation process in a way that you can get to this kind of age and just still have a lot of diversity and complexity and interest in the whiskeys. And that's what I was sort of looking to showcase with the single barrel. They're true single barrels, right? So it's the single barrels, it's genuinely what you think it is, which is one individual barrel poured into a tank and bottled on its own. And then, when that is empty, you start the next one. It's not mingled, which is, I think, a bit unique. But as a result, there's obviously a lot of diversity.
Right.
And especially at that age. And I really picked the lots for that program to showcase that, right? So there wasn't a particular flavor profile. What I was going for is good and interesting. So there's a lot there, and I really am trying to make it as pretty widely available. And that said, there's only so much it's allocated, but I'm intending to try and keep it coming, not make it a limited edition. The other ones are very different, very, very different.
Until these three, which all appeared in the last quarter of 2020, until these three, the only Dickel branded whiskey that had your fingerprints on it was the Bottled in Bond, correct?
Yes, correct.
Which we tasted in our previous episode with you.
Yeah, Bottled in Bond. So I did those 2 releases of Bottled in Bond that have been out so far. So yeah, I had done both of those. And then you can see the product of many months of work coming out kind of all at the same time.
I haven't tasted these yet, but I didn't get the second one yet. That's still in transit. So I have a sample from Philip's bottle. So I didn't see the second bottle, but the first bottle is just gorgeous. I love the shape. I love how that you have the name embossed on the side. And then I love that the label actually has a texture and you can feel some of the words. Did you have anything to do with the design of the bottle or the label?
I did very much, although I say that with the asterisks of, I'm an engineer and I have no artistic capability just whatsoever. So the concept was that, so those other whiskeys, so the ones you're talking about is Cascade Moon.
Yes.
And that is my first kind of new brand. So not George Dickel, but a new brand to come out of Cascade Hollow. And the thought there, of course, when I took the role, I'm the general manager and distiller for Cascade Hollow Distilling Company, not just for George Dickel. And, the idea behind that was for them to be able to, they were trying to give me the freedom to do and create some other things. And so this is my first kind of foray down that path. And it is inspired by some history of the distillery. So, this distillery used to make other brands also besides George Dickel. So there was a time when it made some other whiskeys, and one of them was called Cascade Pure Whiskey, which, of course, is not a name that you can use anymore. But they had some really interesting and elaborate ads, and they talked about it in this really, mysterious and lovely way. But there are no details whatsoever about what that whiskey was actually like, which I find very freeing because instead of being burdened trying to copy some whiskey from the late 1800s, I can make it whatever I want.
Right.
So we just took that as a point of inspiration. So I gave, our agency all those old ads, and talked about why I found it inspiring, and then told them kind of what I envisioned for Cascade Moon as a series. So as you'll notice, right, they're called Edition 1 and Edition 2, which I think hopefully helps to frame up the idea that each of these is sort of one-time releases,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're meant to continue onwards. And the concept behind Cascade Moon is just to think about the future of whiskey, and what could be different and start to push things forward. What are the, there's special things that we have at the distillery that are not George Dickel and don't fit inside of George Dickel. And what can I do with those that is interesting and really like showcases what's cool about them, but also sort of pushes the idea of American whiskey, forward, right?
Very cool. Very cool.
And so thinking about the future, like I wanted them to be really different. I wanted them to not look like anything else on the shelf. So when I hired the agency, I told them, look, I don't want this to look anything like any whiskey that's on the shelf right now. So throw out all the regular semiotics, the leather and the foil and the whatever else,
Right.
And I want it to be really artistic, really interesting and eye-catching. I take inspiration from other categories like beer and wine, be creative. Like, here's some art that I find interesting. Here's some of the old ads that I find interesting. Here's some of the old bottles, but don't copy them. Take them as a jumping off point, go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully I had the guidance of some people who actually do have a really good eye for design, my brand leader and the agency. And, the funniest bit, Kerry, you'll laugh at this since you're looking at the bottle right now, is the only thing I said was like, just no pink.
So there we go. Edition number 1.
It's got pink.
It is pink forward. Both of these would not have been out of place in the late 60s. There's a definite tie-dye cast to them.
Kind of, yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like watercolory and like,
yes.
Yeah, they're different, right? They don't look like whiskey. And that's what I wanted. And I also didn't want to put a ton of words on the label, right? So like I wanted the flavors to kind of be expressed in color, but then if you'll notice, there's like a tiny little QR code on the side. So
I was just going to say, I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's also raised. So you feel it as well as see it. Just kind of cool.
And then you're like, oh, hey, what's that? And this is me, again, being like a silly non-packaging design person. I was like telling my agency, okay, I don't want a lot of words on the label. Like, I don't want people to get caught up in the description. But, of course, like I'm a whiskey nerd and there's always going to be those whiskey nerds out there that want to know literally everything. So we need some way that they can access that information, like online from the printed label. Like, can we do that? And they're like, duh, Nicole.
Love it.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful notion because if you pack all the text on there, which some brands do, it can be a real turnoff.
Yeah.
It's often a too long didn't read moment.
Totally.
And it can turn people off of the whole experience by saying, for the geeks out there, here's your QR code, go wild.
Yeah, you want to know a little more about this, and we're still updating our website, but my intent is one day to get to like tables of detail, right? Like you can know anything you want to know about this whiskey if you want to know about it. So that's where I'd like to go with that. So that's the idea and thought there.
That's wonderful.
I'm scanning the QR code right now.
There's a fun little video, so be careful because the audio is going to be distracting, but there's a fun little video there.
Ah, okay.
It's cute. You like it. It's fun. We got creative with it.
Oh, it's great. I love this.
Yeah, it describes a little bit sort of the idea behind the whiskey, which was for that first one, really inspired by the flavors of Goza beer. So if you're going to taste through, this is the one I would recommend starting with because it's the lightest by far.
All right. I think I'll make a pour right now.
There you go.
The Cascade number 1?
Yes.
Okay. Now you're in Scotland. You likely do not have these in front of you. Is that correct?
I do not, but let me assure you I've spent much time with them.
So Kerry and I are drinking alone. All right.
She doesn't need to know. I mean, she doesn't need to drink it. She already knows. She's got it in food bank memory thingy.
Extremely.
Okay.
I was very paranoid about these, so I spent a lot of time.
On the nose, and given the label design, I halfway expected patchouli, but that's not what I'm getting.
No.
I get pink on the nose, if that sounds... I get like a springy...
A rosiness?
Flowery...
Like a rose bloom?
Yeah, I get it's like a springtime scent.
No, I'm glad. That is exactly why those colors were chosen, and that's exactly how they convinced me that it did, in fact, need to be pink.
Yay!
When I gave them the tasting notes, so the concept behind the whiskey, it's quite unique, I think, in American whiskey. So the basis of this whiskey, 80% of the base blend is liquid that had been aging in refill casks. So it was from a distillery startup kind of way back in 2003 when the distillery was first turning on after a long shutdown, and they didn't have new casks. Like the truck hadn't arrived when they were restarting the distillery. So they were filling into used casks, because that's what they had. And I think they kind of figured, hey, it's like a startup anyway. It's, whatever, just put in used casks. And it's been sitting there. It had been sitting there at the time for 16 years. And so it's a bourbon mash bill aged in refill casks, which is pretty weird for American whiskey.
Right.
Indeed.
And it was really interesting to me. And really, I was like, this is a really cool liquid. It had this very interesting, especially you'll get it in particular if you add like a drop of water. It's like a savory, almost pretzel-y, brothy, slightly grainy note, which I, considering its age, I was really surprised how much of that grain was still present.
Sure, that it wasn't solid wood.
Totally. But the refill casks, like I said, the lower proof in the Danish style warehouse, I don't know, by some magic of time, it still tasted like that. And I thought it was really interesting. And it also had this kind of fruit note, like a bright fruitiness that I was really excited by, like almost like a raspberry-ish,
That's it. That's the note.
Yeah, that is.
As you pointed out. But I couldn't quite, it wasn't really balanced, right, as it was on its own. And I was blending with a blending assistant, and she was talking about it. She's like, it kind of reminds me of a beer. It's like, you're right. Like, it does remind me of beer. And that's a great way to think about how could we make it balanced, right? And I thought about Goza style beers and how they balance that like savory and fruit notes, and the two notes together kind of balance to make
raspberry Goza.
Exactly, right? So I went out and found some other whiskeys that were a little younger. So an 11-year-old new cask whiskey that had some really heavy fruit notes, sort of those specific like berry and pineapple kind of notes, and blended that on top of it. And that's how we brought it into balance. And that's how you got this.
Right.
Oh, I think it's great. And I did just add some water, and wow, that does make a difference. And both ways.
Doesn't it? And that's also why it's such a low proof, because like kind of that oiliness, that savory character really comes out as you drop the proof. So,
it's at 84 for the benefit of our listeners. It's at 84 proof out of the bottle.
Right. And it's got some seriously nice legs too for being a lower proof. I was kind of surprised at how.
Yeah, it's a lot of whiskey, but light. I want it to be like, it's like light and crushable and lovely, and I don't know, so fun to drink. It's what I think of when I think of Goza beer. Like, it's really complex, but it's also like something that you would, I don't know, put fruit in and crack on a beach.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, speaking of beer, there's a bit of hoppiness to it.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not distilled from drinking beer, so there are no hops in here. But it's got that note.
Yeah, like a citrusy kind of. Yeah. It's surprisingly fresh, considering the ages of the liquids in there, right? Like an 11-year-old and a 16.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, it was 16 years in refill casks,
yes.
So it couldn't be sold as bourbon by whoever made it.
Exactly. That's right. Yep.
So you more or less rescued this.
I mean, I'd like to assume that probably whoever came along would have noticed that this whiskey is delicious and belongs in a bottle, but...
Oh, come on, take it. You rescued it. Come on.
You never know. It's not nice it was lovely on its own, but not exceptional, and that's, I think, what I'm kind of proud of having done with this one is like find a way to find the right inspiration to make it really balanced and lovely as opposed to just interesting,
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I'm assuming you want to move to the second Cascade Moon before we move to the single barrel, since we're...
That's what I would suggest.
Okay.
So the single barrel is pretty high proof, and some of them are really big punchers. So, of course, I don't know which one you have, but some of them are pretty big punchers. So I would definitely leave that one for last.
We're working from a 100 ml bottle here, and there's very, very fine print.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we don't number the barrels individually, so honestly, I have some notes from the laser cuts and stuff, but so the Cascade Moon number 2, so the one that you have the little vial of, that one's interesting. It's a bit different in the long line of Cascade Moons, once they exist, which of course they don't.
Oh, that's beautiful smell.
But I can tell you what's coming in my brain, which is not, most of them are thinking about the future. This one has sort of got its feet on both sides. So this whiskey is thinking about the past and kind of where we've gone, but treating it as more asking the question of what's the legacy of the next 150 years going to be.
So is that why you had it kind of come out towards the end of the year, so it would kind of coincide with all the Dickens Christmas Carol episodes that were coming out on the TV? A little Christmas present, Christmas past?
I mean, the reason at the end of the year is because COVID is supply disruptive. But sure, that's a prettier story. Let's go with that.
I mean, I think it matches better, right? You did it on purpose. Little ghost Christmas present pack.
Yes.
Absolutely. I definitely did that on purpose. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
I love the nose on
this
this.
bottle. Now, Kerry, I know you don't have the bottle in front of you, but I have to ask, this bottle, is this glass painted white or is this ceramic?
It's ceramic.
Oh, I can't wait till I get mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of brands, like a lot of the Heritage American brands, there was these time periods where they were really into ceramic bottles, and Dickel has a lot of them. And so I wanted to, and of course you go back even farther and the whole like ceramic jug iconography comes up. So I was interested in using ceramic, kind of making that nod to the past, but doing it in a way that it's not a recreation of an 1870 bottle by any stretch. It's again like taking points of inspiration, but really like future things. Because what's the point of bragging on your 150-year legacy if you're not thinking about the next ones?
Ooh.
Right. And it says right there on the label, 150 years of crafting Tennessee whiskey, George A. Dickel and Co.
This is lovely.
Yeah. So it's celebrating our anniversary. It's celebrating that this brand has existed for 150 years. But I guess trying to do it in a way that like takes that as this is just the beginning.
Yeah. Now, owners of whiskey bars will curse you because it's impossible to track inventory on a ceramic bottle. How much is in there? I don't know.
Considering the price of this bottle, I'm going to guess that not a lot of it's going to get sold in bars. But
Okay. All right. I think I saw somewhere
That begs the question then. How much is
the suggested retail? $249.99?
$250.
$250. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm going to savor that when it gets here for sure.
It's a fancy whiskey.
Oh, what's the difference in price between the first edition and the second edition?
The first is $90.
Okay. That's a fairly large difference.
Yeah. They're going to probably vary widely because I'm looking at it's honest pricing based on the cost and a markup.
Okay.
Right.
So there's probably going to be no consistency whatsoever because the liquids are going to cost different. But obviously the pack for this one, the bottle is ceramic. It's custom from this lovely artisanal producer in Mexico. Wet sandblasted to give it that kind of like aged feel, and then dipped. There's quite a lot that went into making it. And then that label, the paper label that's on it, was actually printed in a letterpress that was also from the 1800s. So,
wow.
Yeah, just really tried to build in a lot of like the history details in there, but in a way that like felt fresh.
It has this pink blotting
Yeah.
scattered all over it as well that echoes the label.
I have a feeling that just to mess with me, the agency is going to put pink on literally every bottle now till forever.
So are you as anti-pink as I am? I'm like, don't make me wear pink. I was in a wedding once and I had to wear like a coral pink dress. I'm like, I can never wear this again. Like, because yuck, it's pink.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker. Like I wear black from head to toe mostly, but
I, for the record, look fabulous in pink.
I believe you.
Oh, that's what you think. That's what you think. Just kidding. But no, he does. He wears bright pink and bright orange all the time.
I do.
Well, these whiskeys are for you. So the liquid in that bottle is also exciting, which I know, again, it doesn't say a ton on the label because, of course, I don't.
Does that have a QR code?
I think it does. I'm pretty sure it does. I believe it does. Yeah.
It does. There's a QR code.
Philip, if you want to take a snapshot of that and send it to me, I would love to look that up.
Sure.
Okay. I'm reasonably confident that it does.
It does.
And so that whiskey, it tells you a little bit about the bottle and how it's made, and then the whiskey. So I was just talking about that startup back in 2003. So the first, they filled all these refill casks, and then when they got their shipment of new barrels in, the first new barrel that they filled, all the distillery workers that were there at the time signed.
Oh, wow.
And so that barrel is what I built the blend around for this release, so trying to celebrate, the people that make George Dickel what it is, obviously, which is all the folks that work there. A lot of them still were working there, which was really exciting. And we, gifted all of the workers a bottle of this so that they could, enjoy and appreciate it. So that it's all from that year. So it's all 17-year-old.
Yes. Now you say this is 17-year-old juice?
It is. It is. And I know it seems maybe a bit odd to go to that before the 15-year-old, but I wanted something really kind of exquisite, for this week, obviously. And I think it's actually surprisingly, again, sort of light and balanced.
It is. This is a fantastic dram.
Well, I can attest to that. I snuck a sip yesterday.
When you were getting my samples ready?
When I was pouring the sample. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And yeah, it's all that. Now, the nose on this is so strikingly different from edition number one.
Yes.
It's a different whiskey. So
It's an entirely, so this one is, all of this would qualify. This one is technically a Tennessee whiskey.
mm-hmm.
So it meets all the bourbon and Tennessee whiskey standards.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of tastes like a cross between a Scotch and a bourbon to me.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so glad you said that. I swear.
Yay, I'm not wrong.
Did not see that. But something I always find really interesting about Cascade Hollow is there's a lot of like inspiration is maybe even too strong of a word, but I spent time over here. I guess I'm thinking about it because I'm in Scotland now. There's a lot of things about the distillery that remind me of Scotch whiskey distilleries. The look and feel of the place to begin with, but also like the lower entry proof, the longer aging, those single storied warehouses, the open fermentation. Like there's a lot about it that's evocative. The period in which it was built, where a lot of Scotch whiskey distilleries were built in the 60s. Like it reminds me. And definitely I think about that when I think about Cascade.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, please note, the portmanteau of bourbon and Scotch would be botch. So we probably don't want to run with that as a marketing scheme.
Okay, pro tip, good, yeah.
No, we don't want to talk. No, that's worse than like, what is it? Benifer? Was that what they were?
Oh, Benifer.
That's worse than that. Yeah, that's worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is fantastic. So I can't wait till my bottle comes, and I'm going to have to actually control myself on drinking it. No, it's really good.
Thank you. I'm really proud of it.
Wow.
I wish I still had some of your bottled and bond so I could decide which one was my favorite, because I really liked that one too. But so far.
Yeah, they're different. But I mean, bottled and bond's a pretty big whiskey.
Yeah.
But hopefully out of some of this, people will start to see like a bit of a theme on the things that I'm trying to make, which is always, I think, trying to create things that are lovely and beautiful and balanced, and not just like, it's old whiskey, here you go,
Right. Now here's a question. How many of these barrels, or do you know, or are you allowed to say, did they leave that they have sitting there, that they had all these refill barrels to start with? Like, was it like hundreds of thousands? Was it hundreds? Was it like 20?
No, good question. I don't know the number off the top of my head. It was not 20 and it was not hundreds of thousands. So we dumped, I think, like 40 to make the original Cascade Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't use all that liquid, right? So we dumped the ones I wanted. I blended off some of it. Some of it's still in totes. I'm going to do something fun with that. But I have more. So I'm not being cagey. I just don't know the number. But like, it's a couple different lots, maybe a couple hundred.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this will be coming for a while then. So we'll have a little bit.
I'll probably do different things with it.
Yeah.
So Cascade Moon number one, like that one, I blended it with some 11-year-old that was really fruity.
Right.
That's how you got that Goza inspired beer. I could do other things with it. I could blend it with other things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What I'm saying is you have stock to play with for some time.
I do.
Okay.
I have so many things to play with. This distillery is full of life.
Oh, I can't wait till COVID's over and we can come visit you. I really, really can't.
Oh, yes. Yes.
This is such a delightful place. Trust me, this is only the beginning.
All right. I'm going to open my single barrel now.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know which one it is because there's no number on it other than the 15 years.
Truly, they are massively different.
I will tell you that there's creme brulee on the nose.
Yeah.
Well, there might be on yours. Let me check mine. Hold on.
They're really different. They can be really different.
I guess that could be creme brulee.
There could be.
It's definitely desserty.
It's creamy. It's toasty.
Yeah, I definitely get some toast. I think we might be on the same batch. All right, let's take a taste here. Woo! Yeah, that's got some kick.
It's a big one. Those will be, you should check your proof because these are bottled at different proofs.
Doesn't say a proof.
It does not say, Nicole.
All right.
I think
we're having a 300 proof right now that nobody else is going to get.
I think these are media only, not for resale 100 mils.
Yes. Okay.
There's nothing beyond 15 years Tennessee single barrel.
Okay. Well, so that could be as high as I think 103 something.
Okay.
Oh.
So what we did, there's quite a bit of variability at this age in proof. So some of them come out high and some of them have come out as low as in the mid 80s. So I did not want to dilute the whiskeys. These are really old, lovely whiskeys. So I didn't want to dilute them. Mm-hmm. I want to dilute them as little as possible.
This is not in the mid 80s. I will tell you that.
Yeah, I bet not. Especially when you're trying things like toffee and stuff as well. But the whiskeys, they vary quite widely. So And it's not really practical at, a distillery at our scale to be like handwriting proof on all of them, which of course is what we would have done at Kings County if we were making like 30 cases, but that's not really practical at the scale. So what I did was pick 6 different proofs based on the averages of what I had seen. And so the single barrel is bottled at 6 different proofs. So when we pull a barrel, they measure the proof and basically pick the appropriate one that's like the opposite of Price is Right rules. It's like closest without going under,
Right. I just added some water to this and oh, wow. It brought down the burn and I got really, really some nice flavors out of that. So I have a feeling we have one of the 100-ish.
Yes.
We do. Pretty hot.
Shocked, yeah.
We do. Oh. This is north of 100, I'm sure.
We started at the top, and I'm sure we sent those to you kind of early on. So those two.
Yeah, we've had this one for a while. Oh, it's lovely. I really like it.
Yes.
I'm not.
It's been aging in place.
Yes, I'm not usually a person who adds water regularly, but I do when I'm tasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if it's one that I know that I like with water, then I make a mental note so that I get water.
Yeah, likewise. I'm not big on whiskey corretto.
Okay, now I'm going to go back and taste all 3 again and see which one I think I like.
After you've been tasting that single barrel, you're going to go back to the Cascade Moon Edition 1 and be like, where'd the whiskey go?
Let's see.
Yes, I didn't order the fruit salad.
Right?
Oh, you know what? I kind of feel like I like the first one better now that I've tasted the other ones.
Really?
Like, well, when you put it's like, brush your teeth in orange juice. Like when you put something else on your palate, then you still have something there. So it can either enhance your next flavor or it can not enhance your next.
I know what I'm having for breakfast.
Well, then in that case, I highly recommend that people go out and buy all 3.
Yes.
And taste them in order.
They should.
It obviously
Indeed.
works out well.
Indeed.
And then come back.
Yes. And then go back. Okay. So now I got to.
What is the MSRP on the single barrel?
Good question. $59.99.
Wow. That's a bargain.
Yeah.
So $60, $90, and $250.
That's right.
Okay. Great.
Okay. And of course, I'm going to like the $250 the best.
The standard Dickel expressions, just for the benefit of our listeners, what's the range there, including bottled and bond?
Oh. Yeah, so we start at $22.99, and then typically the 12 is like anywhere 24, it's like mid-20s, and then the barrel select varies, but it's usually in the low 40s. Bottled and bond should be right around $40, and then the single barrel is usually the 9-year-old single barrel, which is the one that's been out, is usually right around $50, and then this will be right around $60. So that's kind of the range.
Okay, well, it's official.
What it is.
What's official, Kerry?
The whiskey edition number 2, Cascade Moon number 2, is my favorite. And of course, because it's the most expensive, that's why it's my favorite. So I'm going to have to save money for it.
It's always the way. I do the exact same. I go into any store anywhere. I'm like, oh, I like that. Oh, that's the one.
Yeah, the one that cost $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did just come into a small inheritance, so I guess I could put some money aside and maybe buy a few bottles. I think I'm probably going to do that.
Act fast, because I did not make that much, and it is going. I actually may try and make a little bit more.
Oh, good.
Actually, the constraint was not the whiskey. We have a bunch of more whiskey than I needed because I kind of overblended. But actually, the bottle producer, so that ceramic bottle, this producer is it's really small, and they could only make 1,000 bottles. So I'm going to try and do another bottling run in January to make a little bit more.
Yeah, originally we were scheduled to get these in November.
Yeah.
And it became early December, and then it became the week between Christmas and New Year, and then, well, here we are.
Yeah.
And then I still haven't gotten mine yet.
Yeah.
No complaints here. Kerry and I know we're very fortunate to have access to this.
Yes.
But that speaks to the supply issue.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to say well worth the wait.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
Because this dram.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the best whiskey I've had all year.
Oh, my.
Faint praise, Nicole. I'm just saying.
That feels right. Well, I will drink to that. Man, talk about that first bottled and bond creating a ton of hype. I mean, geez, your first release goes out and wins Whiskey of the Year. Better live up.
It was fantastic.
Retire now.
I went through your bottle and bond relatively quickly, and I wish that I could have controlled myself a little more because...
Hey, man, whiskey's for drinking.
Yeah.
I'm working on the blend the bottled and bond. I'm working on the next release right now, and it's pretty good. So
Fantastic. When do you expect that to be ready?
We're aiming for March, but again, supply chains, who knows? That's the hope.
Sure.
Hey, you could make it a COVID anniversary.
Yeah.
edition.
Can we go ahead and not do that? Can we not mention any
Just saying,
release materials?
Year 1 of lockdown is over, and we're celebrating with the new bottled and bond.
You can call it botch.
Yeah, that's
None of you are hired. Neither of you are hired.
Yeah, we're looking for our own marketing team, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So what's next? We know there's another bottled and bond. We know there are more Cascade Hollow editions coming. Take us farther?
Yep. So both of those are coming out. I've got some other exciting things that I don't think I can tell you about. There will be more.
This interview is over.
Right. I can tell you, let's see.
Okay, can you tell us how many more?
Oh, God. I mean, I don't know how. So the thing about Cascade Moon is it's kind of entirely at my whim, I guess,
right.
You would say. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, many, as long as I don't have to travel and I keep getting to spend time with whiskeys, I think they'll keep coming.
Are we looking at finishes?
No.
No finishes.
I wouldn't say never, but I think they're a little overdone. I'm trying to be a little more creative than that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think so, but maybe different blends. There's also, of course, some whiskeys that everything I've released to date obviously has been blends of whiskeys that were already maturing, at the distillery when I got there. But I've been there now for more than 2 years. So soon you should start to see some things that have actually been distilled under my direction.
Okay. All right.
Yay.
So those are going to be coming out.
Okay, good.
Or at least they'll start coming out. And I also, I'm sure you've heard me go on and on and on about how Tennessee whiskey is bourbon.
Yes.
I think we might talk more about that this year.
Good.
So when do you come back to the States?
Who knows? But the aim would be in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
I have a flight booked.
Unless they close the borders and say nobody can travel because COVID got really bad.
Exactly. Who knows?
Well, did you get in before the UK lockdown?
I got in right before the lockdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're having a great time.
I am.
So you were there for Christmas then?
Right after Christmas, I got
right.
here. Yeah. So I am actually. I love it here. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, take some pictures and send them to us, and we'll put it on our website and say this is compliments of Nicole Austin.
Okay, I'll do that.
Fantastic.
It was great chatting with you guys.
Yes, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Likewise a pleasure. And I got nothing else. This has been a delight.
Yes, we love your creativity and we love the flavors that you bring out of the whiskeys that you have.
Thank you.
And you are very easy to fill an hour with.
For sure.
Oh, thanks. This is fun. Same to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
All right. Well, you have a great vacation.
I will. Thank you so much. Cheers.
All right. Have a good one.
Travel safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
World of Wheezy is up next. Stay with us.
Hey, do you like whiskey, food, and adventure?
I do. Hi, I'm Kerry.
I'm Philip.
I'm Louise. I'm the chef.
Chef Louise Leonard, as in our World of Wheezy segment host here on the podcast. And Whiskey, a Chef's Journey. That chef.
That's right, the project that started this very podcast. The series stars our very own chef, Louise Leonard, winner of Emmy-winning The Taste on ABC.
And explores and connects the worlds of whiskey and food, city by city, country by country.
Would you like to see this spirited culinary adventure on a TV near you?
Well, you can by helping us finish the pilot episode through our crowdfunding campaign.
For more information, including behind-the-scenes photos, videos, and incentives,
and to make a pledge,
visit our website, whiskeyachefsjourney.com.
Or search for our campaign, Whiskey, a Chef's Journey, at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com now.
Well, I think it's a cheers to that.
Let's. Cheers.
Hey Louise, so nice to have you back. I just got off the phone with Nicole Austin and Philip, and we talked about 3 new expressions that she's put out, one for George Dickel and under a new brand called Cascade Moon. So I dropped off the George Dickel, which was the single barrel, and then I also dropped off the Cascade Moon Editions 1 and 2. So what did you decide to do this week?
Well, this week, Kerry, I was feeling a little frisky, and I decided to do both of them. So I've got 2 pairings for you.
Awesome.
This week. I'm well rested after the holiday break.
So did you do both of the moons, or did you do one of the George Dickel and one of the moons?
I did one of the moons. I did the Cascade Moon Edition 2, and then I did the Dickel Single Barrel.
Oh, fantastic. The Cascade Edition 2 was my favorite of the three. Oh, so good.
Yes, agreed. It was phenomenal. And so I figured, well, I definitely am going to use that one. And as I was reading about it, I was really like loving, in their words, the description of it's as mellow as Moonlight. Mm-hmm. And that really like painted a very clear picture for me, like as I was sipping it. Mm-hmm. I felt it only right to make the timeless and traditional New Year's Day dish of black-eyed peas. It is that time of year. Right. My mom is Southern, so it is something that, we didn't necessarily have black-eyed peas every single year, but they were there from time to time. And I do now, as an adult, try to make a pot. I say I need to make a pot in January. So if it doesn't happen on New Year's Day, then it has to happen sometime in January. It's just like, you got to start off the new year this way. Right. So, of course, I had to put my twist on it to pair with the Cascade Moon Edition 2. So what I did is I made a pot of black-eyed peas with a smoked ham hock, some greens. The greens that I used this year were collards that I grew in my garden. Nice. You can use any greens you want. Yeah. Oh my gosh, they were really good. It felt special this year. It feels special when you grow your own stuff. Yeah. And then some cornmeal dumplings. Now, I've done these a number of different ways. You can imagine a cornmeal dumpling to look like a dumpling you might see in chicken and dumplings, something large and fluffy. You can imagine a dumpling to look more like a spätzle, if you would like. Okay. You could also imagine something made from masa. There is something called chochiotes. I know that I'm butchering that pronunciation. It is a tiny little dumpling that has a thumbprint in the center. Oh, cute. Made from fresh cornmeal masa. So that is also an option. If you can imagine having a big old like brothy bowl with your black-eyed peas, some chunks of the ham hock, some greens, some cornmeal dumplings in there. I like to garnish it up with a little bit of a chile de arbol salsa. And then if you are hanging outside under the moonlight in a big fat glass of the Cascade Moon to wash it all back, I think you are starting off 2021 just right.
That sounds fantastic. So what did you pair and or make with the single barrel?
Well, with the single barrel, I immediately picked up on the molasses, sorghum, treacle flavors. That was like one of the first notes that I picked up. Oftentimes, I guess when I'm tasting something, if something like comes to me right away, then I kind of can't get that out of my head. Okay. So I started thinking about, okay, well, what do I enjoy with those flavors? And I love ginger. Molasses and ginger to me taste so good together. And I was thinking about, okay, well, how about if I was not sitting in my apartment in LA and I was somewhere where I could be cooking over an open fire and a hunter had just caught some small game bird. It could be a quail, a squab, a Cornish hen, a duck, a pheasant, though they're not small, but I was imagining something small. Right. And cooking it over an open fire and making a glaze with molasses, orange, ginger, bourbon, all of those kind of wintry flavors together. I think it would be really nice. I'd serve it with a mash of yams, butter, and miso is something that I'm not sure many people think about when they cook yams or sweet potatoes, but miso just adds this really, really nice, salty, umami, pleasant flavor to the sweetness of yams. And then also a little bit of garlicky mustard greens and a good amount of vinegar, red wine vinegar I would use in my green.
The only thing, I think the only time I ever have miso is when it's in miso soup. I don't think I've ever actually just had miso with anything else. So I'd be very interested to see how that tastes with the yams and the butter.
Yeah, miso is such a wonderful ingredient. There's all different types of miso. There's there's milder misos, the white and the yellow, and then there's the darker red and brown misos that have a much stronger flavor. But it's so versatile to use in so many things, and especially if you're trying to add a very savory quality to a dish and you don't want to add any meat products, if you're trying to eat a non-meat meal or just trying to, miso helps out a lot. And to me with sweet potatoes, it is so good because I don't personally like sweet potatoes if they are made sweet. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm totally going to try this now. Next time I make, and I do have some yams. I was going to make yams, but I just ran out of time. So I have yams.
Well, and also I just had a thought too, Kerry, especially because yams and sweet potatoes are so nutritious. You know, I've done it where I've you can steam the sweet potatoes or yams, in a pot. You don't have to turn the oven on. You can steam the yams, and then even, if you just in a little pan put in some miso and some butter and just warmed it up, and I sometimes add a little bit of lemon or lime juice in there just to kind of brighten it up a little bit, and then you can just pour that, and it doesn't need to even be that much. Like we're talking, a couple tablespoons of really good grass-fed butter and maybe a tablespoon of miso, and then pour that over some steamed yams, and now you have yourself a really great side dish for just any day of the week.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I think I will do that very soon since I have my yams available. I just have to go get some miso. Anyway, thank you so much for giving us all of your insight today on both the George Dickel Single Barrel and the Cascade Moon Edition 2, both of which I found fantastic. For those of you who can afford to get the Edition 2, it's a gorgeous bottle, great tasting, and you should get it. So there you go. And we will talk to you next time.
I will talk to y'all later.
Thank you so much for being here.
For show notes on today's podcast, please visit our website at spiritsofwhiskey.com. That's whiskey with an E.
We'll include links and supporting documents from today's Whiskey Chronicles, as well as tasting notes and recommendations from today's World of Wheezy.
As always, you'll see upcoming topics, a guest roster, and links to past shows. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, Salam.
Slunchava.
You can become a sustaining supporter of Spirits of Whiskey by making a monthly donation. Just visit the Spirits of Whiskey page at anchor.fm. That's anchor.fm/spirits-of-whiskey and click on the support button.
And if you really like us, give us a 5-star rating and a review.
Thank you. Spirits of Whiskey is produced by First Reel Entertainment and the Center for Culinary Culture, home of the Cocktail Collection, and is available via Anchor, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are heard.